Okay, now we will be demonstrating our final event, which is held in El Astillero in Nicaragua. I will now be sharing my screen to share a bit about the actual project. This is our final event as a following as from the Climathon, which took place in October, from trash to treasure, beach cleanup, waste sorting, surf, and environmental talks. And again, this is a collaboration between San Diego State University, the Center for Human Dynamics in the Mobile Age, the Metabolism of Cities Living Lab, Metabolism of Cities, Hubzine, Casa Congo, Unleash, and Race for Oceans. Okay, we can definitely start. Currently, we have a situation that is affecting all of our oceans around the world. There's several different ways to do sampling to better protect our beaches and coastal areas by looking at our beaches along or near the beaches, rocky shores, shallow waters, as well as our seas, by looking at fishing sites, open sea, marine biota, marine protected areas, coral reefs, looking at the effects of urban areas by looking at the coastal urban spaces, travel and restoration facilities, looking at inland waters by analyzing, evaluating the effects of what is happening in rivers and estuaries, as well as lake and ponds, stagnant or wastewaters, vegetation, mangrove forests, and coastal green areas. So there's several different ways to understand and evaluate the different effects that are happening in our oceans and coastal areas. First, there's a site preparation where we have several different activities from marking site boundaries, setting transects. We also have analyzing the different materials by flagging markers, having 20-meter measuring tape, using strip transects, digital cameras, and handheld GPS units. We also have litter counting, where we looked at visual inspections of debris, the litter separation material types, using digital cameras to understand the different materials, using data sheets, simple materials as pencils, litter bags, and gloves. We also have the litter analysis composition, where we look at debris classification by material type, by weighing of plastic debris, looking at the material by scaling it, creating data sheets, and using simple features like as pencils. It's important before starting survey beach cleanup to understand the actual environment. So these are some questions that we would like to consider. Some are, where are the areas where litter is most prevalent? How much litter occurs in the selected study site? In this case is El Astillero in Nicaragua, in Central America. What is the litter composition, if it's wet, recyclable, non-recyclable? And what are the principal types of material, for example, plastic, paper, metal, different sorts? What are the principal litter items? Does the amount of litter vary across different transects? And what are the possible variables that affect the input of litter at sea? So we have created a small sample, which I will display after our presentation. So the sampling instructions that has been developed, not only in this case, but also across the world, some survey supervisors are considering is to assess the site conditions, looking at the weather, the tide, the accessibility, and the safety of the particular area, choosing a starting point to begin the survey, marking the sampling area with flag markers, and also divide the study area into transects. So here we can see that it's important to understand exactly the boundaries of the area that will be where the beach cleanup will be held. In this case, as my colleague had mentioned before, we have Casa Congo, which is located in a coastal area. We will be creating 4 different transects where we will have our volunteers let's say, look at the different, collect the different wastes that are found. Two of the transects will be located along the coastal and near the water, while the other will be located near roads as well as the residential and commercial areas. And here you can see a little bit more about where El Astillero is found. Some sampling instructions to consider when developing a type of beach cleanup are taking photographic evidence of the sampling area. So this is definitely important to monitor and also keep track of the different materials that are found within a specific area. Record the GPS coordinates of your assigned transect. So this is definitely something also to keep in mind. And more effectively record the information for every piece of litter using ID, date, transects, collectors, and material types by using coding. And use label litter bags to collect litter and separate wet items like organic waste from dry items as recyclables, non-recyclables to avoid material contamination. So also using different colored bags can be definitely a strategy. If any item of litter is too large, it's important to keep in mind such as heavy material, mark it down and to make sure not to handle it. And potentially dangerous items such as chemicals, batteries, and broken glass should be recorded and counted, but not handled, as it's important to make sure that our volunteers are safe. This is an example here of how a sample recording could be conducted to mention the date that it was selected from the ocean, the site location, the transect, categorization, the surveyor ID, the litter item number, the litter type, material type, and description. So we had our volunteers for El Astillero develop a very simple way of keeping track of our materials. We asked our volunteers to look at these different 6 categories from organic, plastic, paper, metal, glass and ceramics, and clothing. It's important also to keep in mind which of these materials are recyclable and which ones are not recyclable. Some examples of organic materials are food waste, grains, wood. Some plastic recyclable materials are shopping bags, clean food, wrapping, tableware, cutlery, cups, flip-flops, tires, home supplies, and containers. Some non-recyclable plastics is dirty wrapping, plastic furnitures. We also, paper is definitely an important and popular material. Some wet paper could be napkins, tissues. Some examples of recyclable paper are paper in general, cardboard, paper plates. Some metal recyclable, we can see cans as being on the category, as well as some non-recyclable metals are metal cables, metal scraps. Glass and ceramics, recyclables being glass bottles and non-recyclable ceramic tableware and broken glass. For clothing, we can see that some of it might be non-recyclable due to the fact that it can have traces of plastic. So we can see clothes as being an option, shoes and boots, as well as textiles. So here we have some examples of these different categories of materials that are found in our coastal and island regions. We have here flip-flops, food wrapping, shopping bags, as well as different sorts of clothing and textile. So today, in December 4th, 2021, we created the beach cleanup with a number of volunteers, children being our main target. We decided to categorize the area in 4 different transects. Here we have one of our volunteers, Emmanuel, explaining to the children the importance of having healthy and clean beaches. He described how each and every single one of these children can themselves be considered a hero within their own city. So it was very interesting to see the reaction of some of these children, and also the knowledge that they have gained within their schools as well, their own individual families. Here we can see the children preparing for the beach cleanup. Here we had 3 different volunteers, adult volunteers, who worked closely with the children to make sure that they were safe, and also utilizing COVID safety measures. Here we can see again, as the volunteer adults were working closely with the children to make sure that they were safe during our event. And we were communicating closely with the Casa Congo volunteers and team to make sure that the event ran very smoothly. Here was an example of what we wanted to share with the children in order for them to better understand of different ways to survey and collect waste from coastal and island regions. So here we had 4 different bags in 4 different transects. And then we had a type of, let's say, tally where children can monitor the waste that they find and categorize them based on the specific material, as well as taking photos. And here we had 2 different transects along the coastal area and 2 different transects on closer to the urban and road area. So this type of, let's say, trash, it comes based on different types of reasons. The major one being the consumer behavior. So we have to also think about what can affect consumer behavior to behave in a way where they believe that trash should be okay along coastal areas. So this could be due to the social cultural factors from their daily lives, their educational, their background, so their social norms, also the peer behavior of their lives, as well as some cultural beliefs that may have an impact on why people might recycle, might not recycle, or not. Some regulatory factors could be environmental policies, some informality, uncontrolled dumping. So a lot of cities might not have the appropriate resources to educate perhaps their citizens. Others are environmental factors, so perceptions of the risk, care for the environment. There could be also economic factors as being another reason. So the convenience, the incentives and tax, personal gains, the information and educational factors such as public awareness, environmental education, campaigns, activism, and cleanups. So this could definitely be a way to tackle this issue. Using awareness and education are definitely interesting and very positive ways to educate different types of targets, especially vulnerable groups. Some individual changes through education, consumers can make informed decisions for their purchase, let's say, behaviors. They're looking at different alternatives, perhaps using recyclable bags or using cloth bags instead of using plastic bags, or utilizing, let's say, containers as water bottles rather than plastic water bottles. As well, littering practices. It's important for children to start at a young age to understand what is the importance of having clean beaches and having a healthy ecosystem within their areas, as well as disposal options, as well as the systemic changes. So education can enhance decision-making and solutions. So collaboration and involvement of consumers could definitely be one. The alternative-oriented innovation, and some policies and measures. So it's important for different stakeholders to collaborate and come together and understand the importance of this issue. Some expected outcomes for our project is developing this beach metabolism, where using geo-reference inventory of litter composition types and materials. Developing material flow analysis is a way to create awareness about the material that is found within a specific area. using sampling sites, including litter sources and end-of-life pathways. So it's important to understand where the material is actually coming from, if this is from commercial areas, hotels, residential areas, the fishery industry, and better come up with solutions. So recommendations for litter recovery. So understanding where the problem is and figuring out how to solve it. Results in publication and reporting. We hope to develop a yearly report on marine, perhaps cities can develop a yearly report on marine litter monitoring and also some related findings. Scientific publications on the status of coastal areas, replicable cleanup and analysis protocols. So it's important to develop toolkits in a friendly way to attract different vulnerable groups and having them better understand the situation in a way that suits their needs, and results in dissemination. So the webinars to disseminate the study's results, projects at local universities, for example, summer schools could definitely be a great example, and the awareness days for locals and tourists during cleanup events. Thank you very much. And I will also, before, I would like to share the survey that will be given to the volunteers that helped during this beach cleanup event at Casa Congo today as part of our event. So we asked children, where do you find the most litter? But definitely we wanted to make sure that this survey accommodated their needs. So it was translated into Spanish, since the official language of El Astillero is in fact Spanish. So where do you find the most litter? On the shoreline, on the land side, close to the parking, in the water, close to rivers or streams coming from the inland, or other. Another question that we asked is, what type of litter do you usually find? So we provided here a number of different options: paper, wood, plastic and packaging material, metal cans and lids, fishery equipment, because El Astillero is a very fisherman, let's say, town, glass and ceramics, clothes or textiles, and even COVID masks, definitely appropriate based on the time. And what type of litter do you usually find in these areas? So we wanted here to understand if children understood the differences between recyclable material and non-recyclable. Here we provided a bit of examples, as well as wet litter. So here's wet litter, recyclable and non-recyclable. Did you participate before to a beach cleanup? So this was important for us to understand if these volunteers in fact had experience doing this kind of activity. Would you also clean up the beach without this competition? Yes, no, and maybe. And how many litter did you generally find today? It's important to also develop this kind of question in a way that is easy for different people to understand. So here we have 0 to 5 pieces, 6 to 20 pieces, 20 to 50 pieces, as well as 50 to 100 pieces. And what makes it more difficult to collect waste from the beach? So here our options are: the materials seem dangerous. I don't have anything with me to pick up the materials. I didn't bring anything to collect the materials. I don't know how to collect waste properly. And our last question is, why do you help with cleaning up litter from the beach? Because I live close to the beach, because I wanted to participate in the surf competition, because I think litter should be clean from the natural environment and ecosystem, because it is fun to do, because my parents in school taught me to do so. So these are a number of questions that we asked our volunteers during the event, and we hope to get some very interesting results and better understand their perspective during this wonderful event. Here we have the agenda that took place. We provided the different resources, our volunteers, age group from 14 and up, our city. We also provided, we use QR code as a way to, let's say, much more effectively have our survey filled out. Here we had opening remarks and introduction, explaining the issue of of waste along our beaches and coastal areas. We also provided instruction on how to do the beach cleanup to our volunteers. We also shared the information on the winner for the Climathon 2021 that took place in October. And here we have also the analysis of collected litter items and basic waste characterization and brainstorming on the findings. And winner announcement for beach cleanup and final remarks for the organizers and suggestions on how to continue to engage in the fight against marine pollution. Some material that we wanted to also consider during this event. We want to make sure we keep track of our participants, using photograph images of our participants before, during, and after the beach cleanup. Record general information on the beach survey, understand the number of participants, their age range, the land surface surveyed, number, size, GPS coordinates, and orientation, if it's perpendicular to shoreline, and the transects, the number of litter bags per transect or number of bags per square meter in the transects, total duration of the cleanup. It's important also to understand the weather conditions, the wind conditions, temperature, the tide in tourism season, if it's low or high. And also we shared our social media to make sure that this type of event can be shared and with others around the world, and can definitely be replicable as well. So if you have any more information, please reach out to us in the Metabolism of Cities Living Lab. Thank you very much.